you know you've really hit something on the head or the nail on the head, if you like, when you made a comment to me. You said all this cybersecurity stuff is amazing on a greenfield site in perfect conditions. Mark, you know I talk to an awful lot of people. I learn from a lot of very learned CISOs. I've never heard that. And it's probably one of those poignant observations, right? So when we look at cybersecurity and controls, one of the biggest things that concerns me is the efficacy, right? Is it doing what it should be doing? And is it protecting us? So that's why we make the purchase in good faith. When you said it works, but only, it's amazing in a greenfield implementation. Tell me your thoughts about that, because that clearly tells such a story.
I think if you like have the sales chats, or if you go through marketing materials, like it's all well and good. It all works. It's all great. It's all doing what it's supposed to be doing. Then if you're doing the next step, if you're looking at doing like a proof of concept or a proof of value, vendors like tend to choose the very obvious scenarios. And usually those scenarios are as close to greenfield as possible. So of course it's going to work there as well, right? And then as soon as you then look at your edge cases, you then start hitting this like, this doesn't quite work, or we need an exception here, or we need to turn it off on this particular site because it doesn't work that way. Because the uniformity in your environment is usually not there. Like it's not that easy to just plonk new technology in. It's like, I think there are very few organizations who are that uniform in their operations that they can say everything is exactly the same. Therefore, if I'm just like testing 2 or 3 things in a proof of value, then proof of concept, then I can infer from that the rollout will be similar. And so what I tend to do is when I'm looking at these like major or larger projects for proof of concepts, like let's test the 80% cases that sort of like brown greenfield stuff. But then I also throw in things that I know from my environment are sort of like my problem children. Like I throw them a curveball within the proof of concept, because what technology are we going to use? Use your like cloud secure web gateways or your SASE solutions, right? It's like if you have a laptop from a mobile worker that is supposed to connect to resources on-prem and in the cloud and make that secure, that's the bread and butter use case, right? That's sort of like what they all work with. But then like let's throw some like things in there that are not so common. Like you have international sites, you have people not roaming within a country, but like roaming within multiple countries, or you have different site setups. You have sites that may be only operating on 5G because there's no other network available, and just to test these things out, because otherwise you might go into a rollout and you say it's like, we have this great new technology, but it's just not going to work on 10 of our sites because the sites are so remote. They only have 5G and it doesn't work over 5G. And I'm just making up examples here, right? It's like, it's not that we've had an experience like that, but it's just to sort of like showcase that, like, don't just test your quote unquote greenfield standard use cases. Like, you know your environment best. And so you should throw something that you know is going to create trouble down the road. You should throw that into a POV every single day.
Oh, that's good. So you're doing something interesting here with your thinking, or you've got a sense of anticipation. So it's not that I have a risk, I need some tooling to help me close that risk. You're anticipating the reality of how you would operate with that tooling, right?
Yeah, and that is just operational reality. I think it's like it doesn't mean that the tool or the solution is going to be bad, or if the tool or the solution doesn't work with our edge case or with our quote unquote problem children, that we're not going to choose it. It's just then, what are the other things that we can put around this? You're never going to find like the one fits all use cases technology, but you're going to be aware of like where doesn't it fit within your environment based on your proof of value, and you can put that in your project plan that you say, well, I know it's not going to work on these 10 sites, but for those 10 sites, we're going to do something else.
But that's the reality, isn't it? Because I've only ever seen one greenfield site, and it was as a kid. I was brought in on my first project, and it was literally, here's a huge room, fill it with uniform PCs. and a greenfield site, and that was it. That's the first and only time I've ever seen it. So that's a reality, and the world is not uniform and structured. Problems are, and I think where if we work risk and hacking and how things get breached, it's in this sort of either the exception or it's in the we expected to behave in behavior A, but actually we got behavior B or C or some derivative. Do you think though, in the speed and the, I don't know, not rush, but the sort of the desire to get things going, that we assume things work in certain ways, and when they work, there's your indication it's of efficacy. So we just accept that, because you might see a deployment go well, but we don't realize there is erosion underneath the surface of that immediately because of the realities of the world of non-uniformity, right? And so we see an outcome. A green light is good, right? And must be working.
Absolutely. And I think we when we roll technology, we probably tend to look at where my quick wins. If you look at sort of like your project management 101, it's like you probably want to tick off your low-hanging fruit first, so that in the first couple of weeks of your project you can report success to your stakeholders. On your first few project meetings you can show green ticks everywhere and everybody's going to be happy. So you run that through, and then because you're burning down on your easy targets, towards the end, you then get to those 20% that then turn out your problem children. And then you end up like dragging out your project. You then end up doing variation requests because you're no longer in like your 12 months time frame. You say, oh no, I need 18 months. I need 6 months more budget. I need professional services to fix those 20% that quote unquote we didn't anticipate. So if you know about that beforehand, or if you can start anticipating that beforehand, you could go into and say, it's like, well, we want to do this in 12 months, but we know there are going to be some sites, some people, some processes that will be really tricky. And we're going to warn you stakeholders beforehand that we say, hey, we're going to leave them to the end. We're not going to look at them, but it just leaves us a longer amount of time to like chip away on. Going to do the easy stuff first. The 80% we do that first, but the hard 20% we can focus on a longer time frame because we've identified them early.
Seen that on even they turn into complicated programs on EDR because, we got the 80% rollout, and then we ended up spending 80% of the time on the 20% residual, and then didn't work on the uplift and making what we did implement good and tune it. And that's the other thing, Mark, isn't it? Do you think that there is almost an IT obsession sometimes? Our old IT hats come in where the light goes green. It's sitting there orange for ages. We're banging our heads against it. And the moment it goes green, where does our attention naturally go?
Away from it, because we think it's good.
There you go. And what have we got underneath?
We're in something similar at the moment from a rollout point of view, right? It's like a technology that's going to go on every endpoint. We knew from the beginning, it's like, okay, those are our problem endpoints. So that was roughly, I think, in the 10-15% mark. Like those are going to be a little bit tricky, but all the rest, like we know how to do that. And because we've identified those problem children early, we just pushed out the 80%, but we had that whole time then to look at those 10-15%, so we could spend more time with them rather than working through the 80%, then get to the last bit and then realize, oh, this is going to be really hard, because the first 80 are easy, the last 20 are the hard ones.
Do you remember those old posters we used to see in corporate offices? There's not much traffic on the final mile kind of inspirational posters. That's exactly it, isn't it? But your point is you're going in with a sense of anticipation of that hard residual and accepting.
Yeah, and hopefully a good understanding of what that might be, why it is, and already some options on how to resolve that, or how to chip away, how to work on those last mile problems.